Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is number 61 in our weekly Zoom meetings for the Learning Life Skills Together community. And I have with me today Lucia Viegas-Barros. And we are going to talk about resilience, which is the big thing on our minds right now, and the other skills as well. So I want to bring us right into this idea of resilience by doing a practice, because we always start with practice. And this idea of how do we get through tough times is really made up of little tiny things and things that carry on for a long time. So we have little tiny practices that sort of help us to get centered and to say, okay, this is how it's going to be for a moment. And we also have things like having a project, a creative project, so that we're making something over time so we can go back to that and then go back and face our problems again, right? Because the thing we don't want to do is to go back and back and back and not face the problem at all. So, because it will get solved if we do that, or it will pass us by if we do that. So here's the practice. This is a tiny little practice, and you need to be a little bit quiet in order to see if it's going to work for you. So if you'd like, if you're sitting somewhere where it's possible, you could close your eyes and just feel yourself sitting here right now and feel what you are feeling. Just notice how you are. Because this is a practice of accepting how it is that you are. It may not be the way you want it to be. And yet here it is, and you need to work with it. So just settling in, noticing how you are. And when it seems right to you, you could do just this one little thing, which is to put a half smile on your face. I'm not asking you to smile, just a half smile. And hold it there for a little bit. And just notice what's happening in your body and your mind as you hold that half smile. Maybe that half smile moves one way or the other. Maybe you notice some shift in you, maybe not. And then you might take a deeper breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And so I don't have everybody who's going to hear this with me to ask how it was for them, but I do have Lucia. And so I'm going to ask her, put her on the spot. How was it to half smile, Lucia?
I like smiling, so I think for me it was great. I'm always doing a little smirk, so felt natural for me.
Okay. All right. And so does it feel like you're ready to go now?
Yes,
Ready to
let's go.
talk?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to us, to the community, sort of, where you're coming from and what it is that you do.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Lucia Viegas-Barros. I am an Argentinian native social worker here in Philadelphia. I've been doing social work slash therapy for about over 13 years now. I started in Massachusetts doing foster care, came to Philadelphia to come to grad school, where I got my master's degree at UPenn. And I worked in different systems from juvenile justice to working with unaccompanied minors to doing trauma work. And I am currently a clinical supervisor working in a behavioral health agency in Philadelphia, working with community members, children and families that are involved in mental health services.
Okay. So as I understand it, in your position, you're sort of overseeing a whole lot of cases, like, you know.
Correct. So my current position is as a clinical supervisor, and within this role, I oversee IBHS, which is Intensive Behavioral Health Services in Philadelphia. We work with children that are involved, that are having behavioral health concerns within the school setting or at home. And then I also oversee our outpatient clinic, which is run like a regular traditional therapy program that you would think you're going somewhere and seeing a therapist for 60 minutes a week. Now, in terms of clients, we're a pretty small agency in Philly, so I would say our census is sometimes between 100 and 130 children. And I will see out of those children, probably half of them, so about 70 kids are under my supervision.
Mm, okay. So that's a lot of cases, and they're shifting from time to time. So you're seeing an awful lot of children, um,
Yep.
and their parents or carers, right?
Correct. So we
So
work with both the children and the family as a whole, because as everybody know, you can't ask for change in children if the parents are not working with us as well.
yeah, so that's where learning life skills sort of comes in. And that's our view, is that it's from the parents sharing the major life skills, the four life skills, that the kids pick them up. They,
Yeah.
because they're being lived in the house, they're being lived hour by hour in their lives. So it's great to be able to go somewhere to go to a therapeutic situation and learn some things. And a lot of the work towards change, I think, happens in those other hours when
Yeah.
the kids with the parents and or carers, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, we oftentimes mention the kids are like sponges, right? And like they're taking away the knowledge that they're learning in the community to then implement them themselves. So thinking about like what they're picking up from the adults in their lives and other children in their lives, right? So how there's this big concept in therapy for modeling. So modeling the behaviors and the skills that like you want your child to do it's a major part of our work in behavioral health.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is our program, is to say, well, parents, you have these skills because you are a successful adult.
Right.
So, but you might not be paying attention to the fact that you have these skills. You might not be using them all the time. You may not make it clear that you're using one of these skills
Hmm.
in front of the kids, with the kids.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that we mean by sharing. And that's what our program really brings to people, is the opportunity to sit with those skills themselves, really for a half hour. I mean, our program, each module for each skill is really not much longer than a half hour, but we feed it out in 5-minute bites so that people can really sort of take them and play with them and bring them into their life with their kids, and choose the ones that really seem to be most useful.
And just like with everything, right? Like it's about building habits. And what kind of habits are you building with your children that your children are seeing and putting into practice themselves, right? If you tell a 6-year-old breathe in, count to 10, they'll do it. Will they do it every time they get upset? Maybe not. But like it
Yeah.
builds you have to build on the habit to say like take a deep breath
Yeah.
and 10. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That the prompt from an adult is, if you're doing it yourself too. I mean, that's the other thing that seems to me to be so important is if you're saying to take a deep breath, it's not you take a deep breath because you need it. It's like we need a deep
We
breath
all need to
now.
take a deep breath
We
right now.
all need a deep
Collectively, yeah.
breath, right? That's the important part. So we do it together. Let's take a deep breath right now,
Yeah.
okay? And
Yeah.
then we'll come back to what we were talking about. Hmm, we both see the shift, we both feel the shift, and it becomes part of how we work. So that's, what we're working with in our program are the four skills of attention, knowing that something's going on with me. Sometimes we don't even know what it is. We're feeling, quote, a certain way,
Yeah.
but then what is that exactly? And then is there something I can do for myself?
What do I do with all those feelings or like that I'm
Yeah,
now having to realize, that I'm having?
yeah,
That's hard for adults. It's hard for
it
any
is.
healthy adult to come in and say, like, I feel angry and I'm going to do something constructive with my anger. But you're asking, children, and that are maybe under their, executive functioning is not really fully developed, and to practice to do these skills and to have them maybe sometimes more emotional intelligence and some adults around them. So like it makes a huge toll for parents and guardians and caregivers and teachers and any sort of adult that has
Yeah.
everyday interactions with the children to really model and really put into practice the skills that we're asking the children to have.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's what we're calling sharing, and that noticing how you're feeling is the first one, and being able to work with it a little bit, yourself or with a prompt, as you were saying, let's take a deep breath, because I see what's going on here, and I understand, how you're feeling. So that idea, particularly of putting words to how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
is such a big deal because that, as we explain in this program, you're using the executive function part of the brain, which is the part that helps us to stay calm. So anytime we can turn that on, I should not have made a gesture. These things
Oh,
pop up on the screen. I don't know. So at any rate, that is a thumbs up. So, there is a sense of I can do something with this. I can name what it is, and that helps me. Then, the next part of it is things sometimes go on and on and on. And that's, as you said, I think at the opening, sort of everybody's working edge, right? Is that when we're in a situation that's unresolved, we don't like that. It makes us feel, certain emotions that we maybe would prefer not to be feeling. And so how do we get through that time? And that's really what we're working on right now, and the stuff that we're posting to our course
mhm.
of learning life skills together is all the ways that we can help ourselves. And so, as I said, tiny ones like putting a half smile on your face when you have to go and do it. It's not what you want to be doing, but
Yeah.
okay, let me try a half smile and maybe I'll be a little more willing and I can get
And
myself.
there's plenty of studies out there now that show like that been shown for years. So, like if you smile like some 30 seconds a day, I think it is, it'll increase your dopamine levels and your
Yeah,
levels, and you
yeah,
actually eventually will like that's where the phrase "you have to fake it till you make it"
yeah.
comes through.
That's all
Uh,
we're doing. And
Sometimes you have
yeah,
to fool your brain
yeah,
into
yeah,
thinking that you're
absolutely. that's what we're after is just it's a little trick, it's a little tweak, and
Yeah.
it gets us to the maybe to the place we need to get. And
Yeah.
wouldn't it be great if our kids knew that?
Yeah.
And if we all did that when we were in those kinds of situations. And then there are the sort of the big longer term ones, for getting through rough times because we want to be able to face it, do what we can to resolve it. And when we can't get it all resolved, we need to take a break. So
Mhm.
what do we do? I mean, we can be constructive about that break that we take. We can do something that's helpful for ourselves and maybe even for others. So it's like something very simple. Go for a walk.
Mhm.
We often do that kind of naturally. It's like I've had enough. I'm going to go outside and go for a walk because we really do know that that's what we need.
Yeah. And I think like the part of our work is making sure that like we're teaching children and caregivers and guardians and parents to verbalize that, right? Like
Yes,
sometimes like we're asking children like sometimes taking a break and leaving the setting is not realistic, right? Like you're in a classroom, you might be getting upset. You can't just leave the classroom.
right,
So
right.
how do you verbalize
Mhm.
that, like this is happening and like I need this from this and what kind of break do I need to take? So there's multiple ways to take a break. Like you can, like we're saying, like we can breathe in, you can go into a safe space in your mind. You can go to like you can tap your fingers, you can count, you can like do multiple skills like within that the setting that you're in to make it like a realistic quote unquote break. Uh,
Yeah,
because sometimes just leaving isn't an option. It's just like an
yeah,
adult. If you get angry at work, you can just leave work.
yeah, yeah,
But maybe going to the bathroom for 5 seconds and like looking in the mirror and doing a positive affirmation and then going back into the classroom.
yeah,
Um, but again, like these are all skills that have to be habitual and have to be built upon and have to be practiced. And like practice them also, as we were talking about, like not only when you're feeling negatively,
right, right.
but
Yes,
also practicing like there's this huge thing now, like practicing gratitude and practicing like this easy, like positive feelings and like praising that for yourself for feeling that way and for like
yeah,
and that you feel
yeah,
that within yourself.
yeah. Yeah, and all of the skills are can be applied in a time and place when you're feeling good, right? And
Mhm.
feeling good together maybe. So you can notice how you're feeling. You can talk about how it feels to be having fun. Oh, I feel lighter. Oh, I'm laughing a lot. To notice those things is the same skill as noticing that I'm feeling sad,
Yeah,
noticing I'm feeling angry. It's all transferable. So we don't have to just share and practice when things are not good.
yeah,
Say we can
yeah.
do it on the other side of things. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, it's the idea that we need to be set up for those moments so we notice how it is, we take care of it, and we get past it. And when we can't get past, when there's a long path to get past it, I guess, we need some of the other skills that come in. So, we were talking about the idea of things that we do together, like making things.
Mhm.
I mean, it might be breakfast, I mean, so that making of something in a situation where you're, hoping to shift things is a really positive way of handling that, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
we,
yeah, and I think I was like telling you, like we like in what I ask my clinicians and my therapists to ask their families is a lot of what do you do well together? Like how does your family function well
Mm,
together? Where are the areas
yeah.
or where are the things like you as a family? like to enjoy together or do together or successful doing together, right? Like that doesn't cause arguments or fighting. And like you're like you might have a bunch of little ones and they're all like like if they're competitive,
Right.
right? I had a family tell me once that like every Friday night they do a dance party, and I was like, that's fantastic,
That's
right?
awesome. Yeah.
And you play music for
I
15
love it.
minutes together and you throw a dance party for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Or like you make breakfast every Saturday, or you make dinner 3 times a week, or you have game nights. You play Uno or whatever. You go to the park once a week, or finding those moments that like together you're like really building upon
Yeah.
um, those like happy skills, right? Because I think that's what makes kids so resilient. Like going back to the topic of resiliency, it's like
I
kids
think so.
are, yeah,
Yeah.
kids will adapt, and like kids will are probably far more resilient than adults are. And that's because like they're able to, in those moments of joy, um really come through and really get motivated.
Fully get into them. Yeah.
They haven't been down by life yet, so like
Yeah.
they have to
Yeah.
like really increase those moments of joy, because like that connectivity and like that moments of happiness and love are like those are the moments that like increase the resiliency in children. um
Yeah.
so making sure that like we're modeling through like uh those skills of emotional regulation in those
Yeah.
moments
In
happening
those
are,
moments.
yeah,
Yeah.
are more
Yeah.
important than like in like applying the skills in the moments of that the kid might be triggered. Because
Yeah.
the kids, when are triggered, are not thinking about like all of the things that are horrible. They're thinking about like what are the things that like made me happy, and like what is my mom telling me to do when I feel this way? Or what does my parent tell me
Yeah.
or what does my grandparents tell me to do? Or what does my therapist tell me to do? And
Yeah.
really get like, you really remember in those spaces, like the things that like really get you through or that really get you happy, because those are the spaces that make you feel safe. And I think that's what it all comes down to, is like, what are the spaces that you can create within the family unit or within the different units that really make the child feel safe and can come back
Yeah.
to in the moments that are emotionally activated.
Yeah, and so I want to say that in those times when we feel safe, and so it's not just our kids, it's us too, in those times, that's when we really learn. That's when learning really happens. And so it's important to sort of keep that in mind that we're feeling good, we're having a good time, we're doing all the things that we're talking about, paying attention to what's going on around us, paying attention to how we feel, taking care of ourselves and others, those kinds of things are are in there. And they're, as you were saying, kids are sponges. They're being soaked up.
Yeah.
And so the other piece of that for me is, and this is really the thing that we stress so much in the course itself, is that these aren't like one-off things that we do. These are practices that we do regularly. So as you were saying, every Friday night we have a dance party. Well, that's something to look forward to. That's a time in which we do feel safe. Those are times that we remember, as you were saying. So the more we do that, the more we reinforce all of the skills and the feelings, learnings that are there, you know. So
I think what's important is also to remember that like in those moments, no matter what is happening within the family, don't taking it away. I think a lot of times parents utilize those moments as consequences. It's like you've been
ooh,
misbehaving and like
yeah.
we're gonna lose this privilege, right? To
Oh,
have this,
yeah.
and making sure that like you're not taking away those moments of connectivity with your child. Um, because again, like those are the moments that like the kids are really learning, and like the fact that like you're making someone feel loved, and like that is the most important part of human connection and human resiliency. Is not just how
Yeah.
did you get through the tough times, is like who helped you while you were going through the times, the tough times? Like, what were you being taught while you were going through the tough time? What were the pockets of light or like happiness that you were able to look forward to in those moments of
Yeah.
unhappiness or sadness or grief or frustration or feeling like nothing's working? We work a lot with children that are under systems, like whether it's juvenile justice or under, like foster care systems. And like the moments that the kids, like they're struggling every day. They're like changing homes, or
Mm,
something might not be working at school, or they have, maladaptive skills that are like getting them suspended or getting detention. And like really having those times in the week where like they're able to get happiness through connections. Those are the moments that like really build on the resilience skills for the
yeah.
so
Yeah.
ensure like as a parent, like even though you're frustrated because your kid is acting out, just making sure that like you keep those moments of love and happiness and, like you were saying, beauty, right? In those in a small instances of a dance
Yeah.
party or a game night or a walk.
That's it. It doesn't have to be a project. It doesn't have to be, okay, today it's Saturday and we're going to X, for
Yeah,
the day. It's like, no, we can do it for 10 minutes on a Wednesday. And
yeah,
yeah, and really
mhm,
have a good time and learn some things. And
yeah.
yeah,
And just remembering for parents to like the modeling part is really important. So it's not only like how do you get emotional, how do you have your child being emotionally regulated in those moments of arguments or in those moments of the you as the parent or the guardian or the adult feel triggered in the moment? What are you doing to model positive communication skills or positive emotional regulation? So like being able to say, you know what? I'm feeling very frustrated in this moment. I'm gonna take 5. I'm gonna go do my breathing, and then we'll come back and have a conversation.
yeah,
And like
yeah,
as the adult being able to say that, the kid will remember, my mom never had a conversation that she was yelling, or my mom really made this change, or my grandmother really made this change, or my aunt really made this change, in which like we never got into an argument again, or we never got into a back and forth again, because they were able to take the 5-10 minutes for themselves and then come back to a conversation that didn't involve
yeah,
yelling.
yeah, yeah. This is absolutely it. That's that emotion regulation skill and that attention skill. I'm feeling
Mhm.
this way. I need to do this. And
Right.
so the other two skills are kind of roll that out in a way. So it's like one of the things that I think a lot about is the idea of knowing what it is that we need, because
Right.
that's one of the things that we can be thinking of. This situation is not going away, it's not going to be resolved right now. And if I'm going to work with it, what is it that I need?
Mhm.
What would help me in this moment? And to be able to not only think about it yourself, but to ask.
Right. And there's 3 pieces to that, right? Like we're talking about attention, emotional regulation. Like, let's see. So like I like to tell people it's like A plus B equals C. I
Yes.
feel this because this happened, and therefore I need this as a result. So I mean, like, and that's a big thing.
That's
Like
a
that's
great
where you're asking like
equation.
a
Yeah.
big thing for a child to be able to not only process their feelings, to be able to process why they're feeling that way, but then to also have the skills to like say like, okay, what do I need when I feel this way? And being able to ask that of the adults around them for
Yeah.
that. And like a lot of parents do a lot of guessing, right? Like, oh, my kid's
Hmm.
upset, so they probably need this.
Right.
But remembering the like the verbalization through the conversation is also very important. So like asking your child, like, I see you're very upset right now. Take a deep breath. Let's level out back to like you're at 100. Let's try to get you back to like 70, 50% of
Mhm.
your of the tantrum. Let's try to
Yeah.
tone it down. Do you need a break? Do you need breathing? What do you need to calm down? Maybe it could
Hmm.
be something simple as like drinking water, taking a deep breath.
Yeah.
Like, let's sit on the floor and like feel the floor on our legs, and like let's do some grounding work.
Yeah.
Um, and then like, what do you need if this happens again? Like, what upset you? What got you to this point that made you feel this way?
Yeah.
What do you think in that moment that you were activated? What did you need? Or like, what are the signs that you
That's
started to
it.
feel activated? And what are
That's
the things that you might have needed in the moment?
yeah. So what do you need? The other side of that question is what weren't you getting?
Mm-hmm.
What wasn't happening for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but making sure like you're asking your child to really verbalize that. And like they might not be able to do so when
No,
they're
you might
super
have to
stressed.
do
Yeah,
a lot of
like
work
they're,
yourself. Yeah, depending on
but
the
it's
kid. Yeah.
practice, right? And it's practice for the adults too, because if you're at your job and something's not working for your, like it's not working at your job, you have to have the skills to ask for what you need at your job. And we're asking that. Which is hard for an adult to do that at their day to day. Imagine being like 8 years old and being like, well, I need a break right now because I'm feeling really upset because so and
Right.
so threw a pencil at me. Like that's
Yeah.
a hard thing to verbalize for a child. But where does it start? Where do we like
Yeah.
remember like
Well,
that's one of the things that like they need to be able to say is important. And it starts at home. That's
yeah.
the remember.
And it is practice. We
Mm-hmm.
need to practice doing those things. So when I say practice, that doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect each
No.
time.
And
It's
it'll take
if
time.
yeah,
I think that's the part like people get most frustrated. It's like, oh well, I've been doing this for a month and nothing has changed. You're talking about years of things that are going in your
yeah,
brain and skills that you or your child or your student or the your client or your patient has been doing for years. Like you're asking them to change that. It takes time.
yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight, and it takes practice and practice for months. Sometimes even
That's
adults can like make it a simple change uh, from one day to another, right?
and we need to remember to do it again and again and again. I mean, that seems to me to
Mhm.
be like the very most basic thing is that we can't do it once and say, okay, well, you
Yeah.
should have that now.
It's habitual. You have to
Yeah,
learn to build the habit for the skill to stick, because then through the habit is where your brain says, "Oh, this is what I needed to do first. This is
that's
what
it.
I need to breathe right now because
Yeah,
I'm feeling like my heart is palpitating. So I need to remember to breathe." Like that's how your brain works. Is things are built through habit, and then your brain is like, "This is what you need to do now."
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we have talked about really all of the skills, so attention and emotion regulation and getting through the tough times and communicating effectively. Those are the four skills. And so there's practices or things that you can do that go along with those and like going outside, taking a walk. Those things change how we are.
Mhm.
Just going out and looking at the sky for a couple of minutes can really change how you're feeling because there's scientific studies on what happens when we go outside for 10 minutes. Our whole body changes. The kinds of hormones that are running through us change. It's really, really interesting that we can help ourselves in those very simple ways that are maybe even impulses that we have. You know, just I
Yeah.
got to get outside. I got to see a tree. I got to see the sky.
I gotta
You
breathe
know,
some
this ceiling
oxygen.
is not doing it for me anymore. So there's that, and there's experiencing beauty, and awe, like a 3 minute. Let me listen to a song that I really love. That's gonna help me shift my mood. That's gonna lift me up or do whatever it is that I need to do. Maybe I need to calm down, you know That's
Yeah.
often the way with me. I'm like, let's put on something slow and deep.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think that's what a lot of people about mindfulness forget is like mindfulness can look like different ways. And
yeah,
just like taking 5 minutes to look at a tree and notice the colors or take a walk or yeah, just sitting still, just in the street, people watching. Like again, like your peace and like the way that you come down and like you come down your nervous system can look like different things for different people.
yeah, yeah. And so the making was the next one, and we talked a lot about that, about how those things that you can do together that make something. And kids love to express themselves in various kinds of creation, right? From
Hmm.
from little ones with a box of crayons to you know, all kinds of sophisticated digital things, I'm sure, get created, and it takes us out of ourselves a little bit and gives us that breather,
Yeah.
takes us away from the little squeeze down problems, as I call them. And, so finally there's belonging, which is a really hard one kind of in our society and the way it flows. It's hard to get together with other people on the regular and sort of have a place where you meet people who aren't your family, who aren't the people you see all the time, who also, you know, practice these skills. And, if you're a kid, probably care about you, care for you, and, as you're saying, model the skills.
Yeah. And I would say that's probably one of the hardest things in Philly is the creation of community through different settings. Sometimes it's hard for families.
Yeah.
If you have a small family, like it's just your neutral, like kind of your parents and you, the guardian and the child, sometimes it's hard to create this like big community feel, especially if like you're not engaging in any religious or spiritual communities or you just don't believe in those things. It's like how do you increase your child's sense of belonging to something else? Um, and finding those programs, right? I think that's one of the things that Philly, even though there's hundreds of programs, sometimes it's hard for like kids to be on wait lists or find
Hmm.
what type of based on diagnosis um or what your kid is interested in. Sometimes like it seems like your kid is not interested in anything, or like your school might not have any extracurricular activities that your child might participate. Or something simple like I can't pick up my kid at 6 p.m. at night and they have to take the bus after school.
Yeah.
That's a big one, right? Like I don't have any
Yeah. Huge.
transportation. My kid takes a school bus and they're not taking public transportation because it just isn't safe for someone
Yeah.
the age of whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so I like to remember, I like to remind parents that like anything that you can get your kid in a wait list, even if it might take 1, 2 years, if you sign them up by the time they're 6, they'll be able to engage in those groups by the time they're 8. Uh,
Hmm.
it's a long time, right? It's the
Yeah.
idea of like that's a long, but
It's that
like
getting
for
through. Yeah.
yeah, but like the fact of the matter is there are a lot of free programs in the city that your child could participate in. So making sure that like just being patient and like the fact of they'll benefit even if it takes 2 years to benefit from it. And if they need things immediately, what are your school offerings? Like making sure that you're calling your school counselor and like asking what programs does the school offer. Calling your health insurance company and it's like, hey, just wondering, like, do you guys have any services that that the insurance might be paying for that you don't know about? So seeing what other programs are out there for your child is
Yeah.
a major way to advocate for those skills, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That being connected beyond the family is really important
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to development and to, essential mental health.
Yeah.
It's really,
How do you create the social skills that your child is going to be
yeah.
utilizing for the rest of their life, right? Like we talk about modeling and repeating a habit. Those are the things
Yeah.
like it's not only about the things that you as the guardian or the caregiver are offering, it's also what is the kid learning from other safe adults in their life.
Yes. Yes. So important. So Lucia, it has been wonderful talking with you. You have really deepened, I think, a lot of our thinking about the skills. And at the end of our time together, in all of these, I ask my guest if they have some words of wisdom for us or a watchword.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself a wise person, but I would say, like, as to my last point, I think this idea of active patience that we were talking about, for parents or guardians or caregivers or therapists to remember the fact of the matter is things might take time, but how do you stay active in a advocacy that your child might need something? So, like, say your child's in a wait list for therapy or is in a wait list for a program, call. Put yourself a reminder on your phone and call every month, call every week, to make sure that like you're actively participating in like the way like the program because it makes a difference. It makes a difference when people are hearing your name on an ongoing basis to say like so and so call again. They like this child needs
Mm,
help or this child like needs XYZ and like things might speed up the process of getting connected to services, of getting connected to a therapist, of getting connected to an after school program. So making sure that you're like kindly, right? Like through your emotional regulating skills,
there you
making
go.
sure that like you're calling and remembering to like advocate for your child is I think like the biggest thing, especially in Philly. Um yeah, this idea of active patient, I think it's my
Ac-
2 cents of
Active patience as a watchword.
yeah,
And I think you are a great deal wiser than you're giving yourself credit for.
thank you.
So, wonderful to talk with you and look forward to connecting with you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.